Hey, what's up, Giants fans? Welcome to another episode of Giants Talk. I'm Cole Kuiper, here with Giants insider Alex Pavlovic. Today, we've got more updates and discussing some of the rumors going around the world of Giants. Plus, the Giants signed the top player in this year's international class. So Alex sat down with Joe Salermo, Senior Director of International Scouting for the Giants. Stay tuned for that interview. Before we get started, Giants Talk is presented by Mancini's Sleep World. At Mancini's Sleep World, every mattress is backed by their Rest Easy promise. That means a 365-night comfort guarantee, free next-day delivery, and old mattress removal, best price guarantee, and 0% financing for 60 months. Mancini's makes sure you sleep soundly in every way. Visit sleepworld.com. All right, Alex, last episode, we talked a lot about the Giants upgrading their infield via trade. And honestly, as we discussed it, I was like, are we spending too much time doing this? It's the off season, whatever, we don't have a ton else to talk about. And not that much time passed, I guess, until Jeff Passan dropped a rumor bomb on Giants fans.
Yeah, people keep getting questions from people like, what do you think about this tweet? What's your response to this? And I direct them to the title of Monday's pod, with excellent job by our producer, Pablo.
Yeah.
The title is Why Cubs Nico Hoerner Would Be a Good Fit in San Francisco. So we talked about Hoerner. We talked about Donovan, the two guys that Jeff Passan tweeted about. Now, the interesting thing about Jeff, and he is, for people who, I'm sure almost nobody who listens to this podcast has actually met him. He's not only really, really, really good at his job, he's an awesome dude, and also does this completely the right way. So there's no BS from Jeff. Like, when something gets to him, it is like the last level, which is why this was fascinating, because it's one thing for us to kind of have informed speculation. When it gets out there nationally, like that, it's a big deal. And he I think he kind of backed up a lot of what we've been talking about the last few weeks, and a lot of what I've been writing about kind of subtly into stories, that they're really into trying to find a second base upgrade, and these two guys in particular. And what I find so fascinating about it mostly, the specific discussion about Hoerner or Donovan, we've talked Donovan all offseason, and if you want like Hoerner specifically, I'd say go and listen to Monday's pod. But to me, it's just really interesting that somebody somewhere along the line, whether it was in San Francisco, whether it was elsewhere, felt strongly enough about this to get it to Jeff and have it put out there for a wide audience. People in other front offices are not listening to Giants talk, but they're following Jeff Passan. So,
you don't know that.
But
you can't guarantee that.
Maybe a couple here and there. But yeah, so I'm more curious now to see where this all goes, just to see like if we can maybe put the breadcrumbs together and figure out why this got out there in the way that it did. Because he doesn't do rumors. He just comes in at the end and says, deal's done.
Yeah. So
that was the interesting part about this for me, just as a beat writer and someone who's somewhat informed. And I'm curious to see, like, somewhere somebody wanted more pressure on somebody else. Whether that is the Giants, whether that's...
Is it weird for Passan to let himself be used by one party or another to apply pressure? He doesn't seem like the go-to guy for that.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see. I don't know if he was, or if it's just he had heard very strongly about this rumor and figured let's get ahead of it. Also, it's been a really, really quiet off season, so he has very few stories to actually chase. Maybe this was the biggest one of the day.
You got to tweet something, I guess.
Yeah, but I that was what stood out to me, that this kind of got out there on a different scale. And it feels to me like somebody somewhere wants to put pressure on somebody else. And I do know the Giants have been very frustrated for over a month now with just the general trade talks going on around baseball, the difficulty of lining up, the difficulty of getting people to say yes and not just, sitting on your offer, going to shop your offer. So yeah, I wonder if they felt like they have a good deal on the table for one of these two guys, and let's move things along a little bit. Or if this came from the other end, where maybe the Cubs want it more well known that,
Yeah.
hey, Brendan Donovan's not the only second baseman out there. We just got Alex Bregman and Nico Hoerner, who's an excellent player. Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners, whoever, come and make your best offers. I think we'll see. And there's a little bit of a gap today between the time we're recording and the time we're posting because of the interview and the international signing period. So maybe there will be some clarity on some fronts. But that is what stood out to me initially as I saw this tweet.
The tweet specifically reads from Jeff Passan: the San Francisco Giants are aggressively pursuing a second baseman and have been engaged with Chicago on Nico Hoerner and St. Louis on Brendan Donovan, sources tell ESPN. An infield of Matt Chapman, Willy Adames, Donovan or Hoerner, and Rafael Devers would be among MLB's best.
Yes.
When he puts it like that, yeah. I want the infield among MLB's best.
Hoerner in particular would I think give him the best infield in baseball. I mean,
when we were talking last episode about the defense he brings to the table, about how the Giants are like pivoting to a philosophy of contact hitting, it all just seemed to line up.
Yeah, and he fills a bunch of cracks for him, and you kind of go and look at. I went and looked at the last 4 years because it's really his 4 years is a big time starter. He is above every current Giants infielder on Fangraphs version of WAR. So he basically is a very similar to Matt Chapman in that respect, like kind of an all around guy, the defense leading the way, just bringing tremendous value. So it is consistent 4-win seasons for him. I don't quite understand why the Cubs would trade him because he also is apparently like the glue of that team.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they go Bregman, Bregman fills that role and Bregman brings the leadership and all that. But I think we've seen from Cubs fans this week, one, just they don't want him gone. And two, kind of they're insane. Like some of the tweets about like, well, Logan Webb would have to be in that deal. Like, no, that's not what's going on here. I know you missed some of that. Not
boy.
For you tab. But yeah, I think Hoerner would be an excellent fit. He'd give him probably the best infield in baseball. It is, I'll finish with two things here. One, just backing up what we've talked about for weeks and what we talked about Monday and what Jeff tweeted about. They are really, really, really focused on improving at second base. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, has been their focus since they kind of figured out the back end of the rotation. And that is something they want to do in January. So I would think there's a pretty good chance at this point with how much smoke is out there that they get somebody at second base. Likely one of these two guys, given how specific all this has been. And, given that we know that at least one of them is very available. The second part of this is it's really a good question of whether this should be their focus. And maybe this is just where they ended up. But if this is what ends up being the big move of their offseason, I think you and I have just felt all along that like second base is fine.
Yeah.
And if you can get Nico Hoerner, who's an excellent player, we also assume it's going to cost a lot.
And but, also it's 1 year, right?
It's 1 year. Yeah. I mean, there's some Bay Area ties there, but we also know they kind of feel like they're locked into some long-term deals here and don't want to add another one. And he's going to be a good free agent a year from now. So it is an interesting question if something happens here of like, is this where the resources should have been spent? And we'll see what ends up being any sort of trade package if a trade happens. I guess I would just go back to like I always would have spent whatever it is on pitching, and we don't know exactly what they could have gotten done, but we do know there's some good pitchers out there still available via trade as well. So yeah, we'll see where this all goes, but definitely there's a lot of smoke here. There's a lot that they're trying to do. And I think this kind of backs up what we've talked about, that they have a real focus here on improving second base in the next month before pitchers and catchers report.
Well, I think maybe the most important part of this whole operation that we haven't dove into too deep is what kind of yield would the Cubs want for someone like Nico Hoerner? Because that's really what makes or breaks this, especially with it only being for 1 year. Are we looking at like, I don't know, a Birdsong Wisenhunt kind of package? Probably Casey Schmidt. What do you think the give up would have to be?
I'd be surprised if it was Casey. I mean, maybe if it's St. Louis, they just traded Arenado, so maybe there's a cleaner fit there. I think a team that gets Casey, you probably want him playing third because he's so good at third base. And if they end up trading Hoerner, it's because they do have a surplus here of infielders. So these are always hard for me to kind of even guess at of what it would be. We do know the strength of the Giants is one kind of big league ready pitching. You can argue about how big league ready. That's the reason they're in the state they're in as well. So a Birdsong, a Wisenhunt, Tidwell, McDonald, those guys have value. I also you kind of look around and there are other teams that if they wanted to, the Red Sox, for instance, they have a lot of pitching now to potentially trade. The Yankees do as well. So there are other teams that would have more in that department if that's what it ends up being. The real strength of the Giants system, and part of that today is Luis Hernandez joining, is just young, really, really young, talented infielders. So I would think any major deals down the line, and maybe it's a little bit too soon for this one, would be centered around one of those guys. And just there's a surplus here. You have 4 really good young infielders, kind of in maybe your top 4 prospects after Eldridge, and whether it's a level or I don't think you trade Joswar at this point, but you have these guys. It would feel like a lot to me to throw, especially one of your top guys into a trade right now. But I think that's the strength of their system, and that's what they can trade from. But again, that's where I'm kind of curious to see where this all goes with Hoerner, because I do wonder how much the Cubs maybe want that out there and want to drum up some interest, because there are other teams that probably are cleaner fits. But yeah, we'll see where this goes.
If this trade happens, I think my narrative is going to be Alex Bregman just traveling around the league, driving his infielders to San Francisco.
It would truly be incredible if Bregman is directly responsible for Rafi Devers and Nico Hoerner ending up on the same right side.
Incredible.
Like I don't know, it's 9 or 10 WAR right side of the infield potentially. Yep. Thanks to maybe a little less, but thanks to Alex Bregman.
Yeah. Just keep doing it, buddy.
Yeah. It would also be equally funny if he ends up in Boston and it's like, so you traded Devers because of Bregman, and then you lost Bregman, and then you had to trade 2 really good young pitchers
for
Hoerner.
Pseudo replace him.
Yeah, Alex Bregman's just kind of pinballing around the league.
The dominoes he's causing. All right, elsewhere around the league, Nolan Arenado, a name Giants fans do not love to hear, is back in the division, getting traded to the Diamondbacks, basically for nothing.
Yeah.
What do we think about this? Is this still like someone that should send shivers down the spine of Giants fans when his name's announced at Oracle Park? He's a noted Giants killer, but he's also getting up there in age.
It has slowed down. I still will say if he comes up at any point next season at Oracle Park, I'm going to believe he's going to go deep. So I don't think you and I and most people who have watched the last decade are ever going to feel otherwise. So I thought that was a really smart move for them, like basically free in terms of baseball.
Yeah.
Yes, they are paying you $11 million. That's very, very little for that. They're essentially paying what you pay for like a 7th inning guy for, one of the best third basemen of the last couple of decades. And I know he's slowed down a lot, but I don't know. I just always think that guy's super competitive and is gonna figure it out. And I think he's in a much better spot now. Than St. Louis was really weird last year when they tried to trade him. There was some no trade stuff. Fully tearing down there. I don't really understand what the Cardinals are doing. I think they're paying like $60 million next year for other teams to get their guys. So I don't quite understand that. And they haven't gotten like a lot of prospects out of this, but yeah, basically free for the Diamondbacks. And I thought that was a savvy move, and they have some holes there. Now I know nobody wants to see this, but they've been connected to bring Goldschmidt back as well.
Oh
I feel
boy.
like you just go all in, put those two together in like one last ride.
Yeah, that would be, I don't know what they had, what they combined for last year, probably like three and a half WAR between the two of them.
Yeah.
But for Giants fans, that would be the scariest 3 WAR I could imagine.
Yeah, and a fun, one thing I'm going to track during the season, this is maybe dumb, but Arenado's played like 156 games against the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming up on a full season of his career
Oh,
only
wow.
against the Giants, which is it's pretty rare, especially with the changes recently. Clayton Kershaw had a full season of his career against the Giants,
Mm-hmm.
more than that. Like there are some Buster had like 100 plate appearances against Kershaw. There's things like that, but to get to a full season, like when he gets to 162 games against the Giants, we're going to look up and it's going to be like, it's 34 homers already. So it's going to
Yeah.
be a really, really solid full season of,
Yeah. Arenado is an all-star in his season against the Giants.
yeah. I mean, it's going to be at least like 34 homers, 115, 120 runs driven in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't, he's honestly one of my favorites of the last decade. Just plays his ass off and now is on the other side.
Yeah.
Again.
One more signing around the league that kind of impacts the Giants or has a Giants tie in. Ranger Suarez signed with the Red Sox. Another big chip off the table. That deal was 5 years, $130 million. And we talked, I think last episode, maybe it was the episode before that, about how the pieces from the Devers deal aren't really seeming like they're making an impact in Boston. So what is this? Does this scoot Kyle Harrison out of the picture over there in Boston?
I think he already was. And
well, that's true.
I mean, I saw someone doing like the look how much pitching depth the Red Sox have, and he was like number 9 or something like that. So
wow.
Yeah, I don't know what. I wouldn't be shocked if like by midseason neither one of the guys left in that trade is on their big league roster.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have so much pitching now too that you wonder like at what point Jordan Hicks just is not one of their 7 best relievers. So
yeah,
that trade is a doozy. But I think my main takeaway from this contract was just that is a lot of money for Ranger Suarez.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing we've talked about all offseason is just the Giants kind of not liking this free agent class and not wanting to spend on these guys specifically. And I don't know that you look at the money Dylan C's got, you look at the money that Ranger Suarez has gotten, and it really kind of rounds all that into 4. Like you can understand now why there's I still think I would have found another tier of talent than what they've done. But in terms of the top of the class, like these guys are going to end up getting their money, and I just don't love some of these contracts.
Mm-hmm. Is there any version of this Ranger Suarez impact that, I don't know, means the Giants could look at trading for Kyle Harrison if he's redundant in Boston? Could they get their guy back and kind of bolster the starting rotation here in San Francisco? I'm just like kind of spinning rumors here, giving us a headline for the podcast that's going to get people grabbed.
Yeah, good social clip.
Yeah.
I don't think Buster's a troll, but if he was, this would be a hilarious phone call. Just like, hey, it was a Bay Area guy.
Yeah.
For Kyle's sake, and maybe it works out for him here still. I hope they find somewhere to, he should be in a rotation next spring. He's put a lot of work in, especially after the trade to find some fixes. And there's just like so much depth ahead of him now in Boston. I really hope he's not like a reliever now in Boston. I would, if he ended up in a trade for a hitter somewhere, I'd be happy for him because it's time for that guy to just get a shot to like make 30 starts and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe there's a world where Casey Schmidt ends up going to Boston because the Giants got Nico Hoerner. There's a lot in play here. I'm really trying to feed this rumor mill.
This is like there's trades in other leagues sometimes like like the Bears trade a couple years ago that there's just a tail to it that you just it just keeps going and going. There's just this Devers trade I feel like we're going to be following for like 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. One of the biggest things going on right now in the Giants world is the international signing period. And the Giants signed, we saw this coming. We talked about it on this podcast already, but the Giants signed Luis Hernandez, the top player in this year's international class.
They did. He signed this morning, bright and early. He was Joe Salermo was there. Felix Piguero, who's Joe's number 2, was there. This is something we've talked about already, and I'll talk to Joe. But just from our perspective, I think this is massive, and not just to get back-to-back international, the top guy. I mean, Joshua was the top guy in last year's class, position player-wise. Roki Sasaki was technically on most boards the number 1 international prospect, but back-to-back years, they've gotten the top teenage hitter out of Latin America. That's really good work. That's especially good work for an organization that I have a story about this on our website now, but basically it was Pablo for like decades.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you go to like 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, like it was Pablo was the guy that they found, and they just did not have much success internationally. They made a bunch of changes about a decade ago and put Joe in charge and tweaked some things behind the scenes. And they've had a lot more success recently. I mean, you look at Camilo Doval and Randy Rodriguez, back-to-back all-star appearances for 2 guys that they signed for $150,000 total, like years ago. So this is a really important market, and it's somewhere where they've made huge strides. And this is a big deal to get these guys back-to-back years. And again, I'll let Joe kind of handle all the details about Luis, but it's also, when you talk about like just kind of how does your farm system go from bad to really, really good all of a sudden, or really good all of a sudden?
Yeah.
You get these 2 guys back-to-back January 15th, so you get the number 4 pick in July because you had some luck. So that is 3 really high-end talents in about, 18 months being added to the system. And look, Willie is signed long-term, and they have other guys, but I think now they have 4 young middle infielders. And if even 2 of these guys develop, you're in really good shape, because you kind of have the guy to fill in at some point when Willie or when Matt Chapman or whoever is ready to move along. And
Mm-hmm.
you have some really good trade chips. We've had a lot of Marco Luciano conversations, and their failures to take advantage there. That's part of the key here is you have some guys now who are going to be really highly thought of, and you can decide who stays and decide who goes, but you have options now.
Alex, for all the talk I did about how the Giants should have traded Marco Luciano when his value was high, I am already like, you can pry these new guys from my cold, dead fingers. I don't learn lessons.
I know. I see some of the tweets from Cubs fans who are warning about like Joshua, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah, hands off.
See that guy. Nope.
Yeah.
But at some point, they have Johnny Level, they have Gavin Colleen. At some point, you figure out who stays, who goes, and it's not going to work out for every guy. I mean, I think it's like under 5% of international guys reach the big leagues, but these are 2 really high-end talents, and it's an important market to be good at, and to see them get there the last couple of years, I think, is probably the best thing behind the scenes that they have done, because we know they continue to strike out a little bit in Asia or not feel comfortable there. Free agency hasn't quite gone the way they expected, but they have done a really, really nice job international in the Latin American market.
I know we're going to hear much more with Joe Salermo, but big picture wise, before we get to that, is there any like high level preview of Luis Hernandez fans need to know? I mean, he's a 17-year-old out of Venezuela. He's a shortstop. Power, contact, speed.
Power guy. He's not a runner. He's a really, really advanced hitter. He hit 346 in a Venezuelan professional league as like a 15 or 16-year-old.
That's awesome.
He was facing like former big leaguers, completely holding his own. I don't off the top of my head know his Instagram handle, but it's not hard to find him, or you can go look up the Carlos Guillen Academy and just watch some of the clips and be like, ooh, that guy, that looks pretty sick. So very, very, the way I've had it described to me is just the floor for him is extremely high. Like he's ready to go. He's not like your average 17-year-old. The floor here is very high, and the ceiling might not be as high as some other international guys, but the odds of him making it at the Giants feel are very, very good.
All right. That is music to my ears. Stay tuned later in this episode for more about that and just kind of behind the scenes with the Giants senior director of international scouting, Joe Salermo.
I'm excited for you to just be like, nope, hands off for the next 5-6 years.
Yep. Like I said, I don't learn lessons. Alex, I want to remember some guys. I want to do a mailbag with you before we get to Joe Salermo. So let's start out with a handful of former Giants who are heading overseas to Japan. Let's throw a remember out to Sam Long, Spencer Howard, and Sean Jelly.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of guys we know now headed over there. I think we're seeing this, like guys see that you go over there and maybe you find something new and come back, you get a real big league deal. So
Sean Jelly is going to draw eyes walking around Japan.
Yes, it's going to be it's going to be an experience. So that's going to be we'll follow those guys. See who's 2 years from now. See who shows up on like top 50 free agent lists.
Exactly. We'll get a signing in a few years. That's going to be.
Also, I think like if I were in these guys' situation, I 100% would do this.
Yes,
like, such a cool thing to do for a couple of years as opposed to just going to pitch in AAA for like the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah,
like guys get hurt.
You get to continue playing the sport you love at a level where you're much more competitive than you would be back here. I would pay to go play baseball in Japan, let alone get paid to do it.
And the money's really good.
Yes.
So that's why you keep seeing these guys pop over.
One more remembering of some guys. Giants fans might remember the pitcher Clayton Kershaw. He retired last year, and he's already back. Not in official MLB capacity, but he's back playing alongside Logan Webb for Team USA this year.
I mean, absolutely no disrespect when I say this, because he was really fun to watch. I interviewed him for my book, and he was phenomenal. This one, I'm like scratching my head a little bit because this is a really competitive tournament, and this guy was not really like even an option for the Dodgers in the postseason, like not too long ago. So
here's my thought. He has shared a locker room with Shohei Ohtani for the past couple of years. He knows how to get him out. He is brought on just as the Ohtani killer.
Like if he pitches against like Brazil or something, I'm like, cool, let's do that. And it's gonna be cool to see him. And I think it's gonna, he's certainly, for somebody like Logan who's going and I think wants to soak up as much as he can. Like, it's great. He's gonna be in a locker room now with Clayton Kershaw, who probably will hold some secrets back, but also is no longer a Dodger, so can talk more freely. But yeah, I think when you look at that staff that has Skeens and Skubal and Webb at the top of it, I kind of go like, where are the innings for even good pitchers right now? So this was I'm sure they'll find the right spot for him, but I hope this doesn't like turn into something weird.
Yeah, and I know Kershaw and Webb have been all-stars together, but it is crazy to just think about Clayton Kershaw just palling around in a friendly with another era of Giants ace. You know, we had the Kershaw and Lincecum era. We had the Kershaw and Bumgarner era. And now that he's retired, the Kershaw and Webb era is still here.
I hope he pitches in that scrimmage at Scottsdale Stadium. He's just like, you know what? I really just wanted to face the Giants one more time. But no, there are probably, I mean, I don't know who they face, but there's probably some like Brazil or
there's a couple of layups in there.
Or Czech Republic. I can say that because that's where my dad's from. Like, I can make fun of them.
Is that who you're going to be rooting for? Do you have
I saw them at the media event, and I wished them good luck. And the guy was like, "We're in the same group as Japan, so we need it." So I don't think they're getting out of their group, but there's probably some layup, as you said, that they can find for Kershaw. So
I think my dad has a Team Holland hat somewhere that he always busts out for the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, and look, it's a competitive thing, but it's a showcase event too. So it's probably, there's some game that we're like, you can find a couple innings for Kershaw out there.
Absolutely. All right, We've got questions from listeners, but first, Giants Talk is presented by Mancini Sleep World. At Mancini Sleep World, every mattress is backed by their Rest Easy promise of a 365-night comfort guarantee with the lowest prices and next-day delivery. Plus, they also have ongoing deals on top brands like Tempur-Pedic, starting at $29 a month, Avocado, Helix, and more. Just visit sleepworld.com. Okay, Alex. First question in today's mailbag is from Bo. Bo says, why can teams trade for additional IFA money, but not trade draft picks other than comp picks? With the money assigned to each pick, isn't it pretty much the same thing?
Yeah, that's a question for Rob Manfred. Yeah, this feels like an entryway to something like that.
Yeah.
You weren't always able to do this. But I don't know that I want to see him trading draft picks, because I feel like that almost feels like that would open the door for some of these teams to just get worse.
I 100% agree. I think trading draft picks works well in the leagues where your draft picks are on the opening day roster immediately.
Yeah.
But with the developmental pipeline baseball has, it just feels like it would be a way for teams to quietly start to just dissolve.
Somebody would just be like, we got the number 3 pick. I don't feel like paying him $6 million.
Yeah, we don't draft anymore.
Yeah, we're going to trade him for a AA pitcher.
Yeah, exactly. So. Exactly. But, Bo, you do bring up a good point. And one thing I've learned in this world is that, a lot of times things just don't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, these things are all collectively bargained too. So it's like you give them one thing and then you draw the line there.
Yeah. Next question is from Don. Don says, what would you think about a signing deadline in Major League Baseball? Seems like the NBA and NFL have a frenzy for a few days, and that's it. I mean, I think right off the bat, this is another collectively bargaining thing. I don't think the players would ever let this happen. Baseball has a crazy strong union.
Union has made it very clear this is an absolutely not situation.
Yeah.
I think the offseason's somewhat broken. And, but I also see their point of view that they're not here to provide content for us. They're here to get the best deals possible for their players.
That's fair.
And they feel like this is the way to do it. I would love to see, and I think this is a pretty easy fix, is like maybe the last day of the winter meetings is a deadline. Or that week is the deadline, and then you have like 2 or 3 weeks where nothing can happen.
Oh, windows.
Yeah, like a little, end of a window before the holidays. I've talked to some executives about stuff like this before, and they're kind of like, yeah, I think this would work too. But just like maybe a 2-week break, end of the winter meetings to New Year's or whatever. That's a little bit more than 2 weeks, but just something that would force some urgency and maybe give us a little bit more excitement. So winter meetings this year sucked. Like it was a chance for MLB to just be kind of on the front page there, and it was just quiet and nothing happened. And I don't think it's great when you have guys signing on like December 29th and nobody cares because everyone's on vacation or unplugged. And I just don't think that's great for the sport. So I'd like to see a little window and then open it back up in January, and whoever didn't feel any urgency before then, you're free to go do what you want. If you want to wait until March, you wait until March.
Your words are saying it's good for the sport, but I know your heart is saying I don't want to be on emergency podcast watch on Christmas.
Well, yeah, but I also I feel for team executives too. I know these guys are very well compensated, but the people who have to take calls on, and this happens on Christmas Day, that's kind of dumb. What?
I've never thought about that as a negotiating strategy, but you got to imagine some of the agents are like, let's harass them on the day they don't want to be harassed. Maybe they'll just fold.
Yeah. I mean, I know some of these people just there's a sickness, but they're just obsessed with it. But I don't know. I think the whole sport could take a week or two off around the holidays. And here's the thing about baseball. You play through basically every holiday the rest of the year. So would it kill everybody to take a week off around Christmas time? 2 weeks off. And
baseball hates Christmas.
Have a little deadline there. The other thing, realistically, this has nothing to do with me just wanting 2 weeks off. We saw when the lockout happened, there was that deadline, and all of a sudden a bunch of dudes signed. They're like, all right, I know what's on the table.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to drag this out any longer.
Yeah.
I think that would happen.
Chasen says last year the Giants really struggled, still probably an understatement, against left-handed pitchers. Obviously, the biggest holes are on the pitching staff, but the offense feels like it's consistently not been good year in and year out. And it doesn't seem like there's much talk about fixing the problem against lefties. Someone like Brendan Donovan would be a nice get, but he's also almost unplayable against left-handed pitchers. Are there any plans, rumors, acknowledgments that they need to make an acquisition or two to get them out of the cellar when it comes to hitting lefties?
Well, look, Nico Hoerner's excellent against lefties. So
there we go.
I'm a little surprised they haven't found someone better at that in right field. Because we know that's not really what Matos has done either. Like, he hasn't proven to be a platoon guy. Surprised they haven't found someone who could just solve this problem a little bit. I do think ultimately this is going to have to come from within, and that's just because most of the lineup is set. And you look at last year, and I mean, Willie hit 201 against lefties. Matt Chapman 224 with a 679 OPS. Like, they just didn't. Some of these guys. Casey hit 196 against lefties. So Ramos, who was basically Aaron Judge against lefties the year before, was down to a 743 OPS. So it's going to have to come from within a little bit. And the right-handed hitters who are making a lot of money and are locked in are going to have to solve that problem.
I'd almost like them to shop around for a veteran bench bat, almost like what Wilmer Flores' role has been the last few years, like a veteran late innings guy who is a lefty crusher, and just have him there for when the big moment comes up. Because this listener is absolutely right. It's been abysmal.
Yeah. Well, that is one area too where I think it's not going to be like at the top of your list in the offseason, but they have a month to figure out who, like, not that any of these guys would be the fit, but like Dom Smith, Wilmer Flores, those guys are still unsigned. Like, they fit holes somewhere. So there's similar types who fit that hole that you're talking about who are out there and just are waiting until, they're probably going to have to wait until February. And so I think we're going to see somebody brought in for that role. But right now they haven't really addressed it.
Our next question is from Dave. Dave says, hey, not McCovey Cove Dave here. I heard you guys wanted a cause for Giants Talk to promote in 2026. How about making it easier for kayakers getting to the Cove? Kayaks in the Cove are as much of Oracle Park during a game as the Coke bottle or the glove. Driving to a game, finding a place to park that is close to a launch site and doesn't have a 3-hour time limit is just about impossible. Sure, I could rent a place in the city to store my kayak, but it's outside. You don't get to wash the salt off after the game, and it makes the whole trip very expensive. The Giants said they were going to put in a launch across the Cove with the development of Lot A, but have not. Alex, what do you think? Is making it easier for kayaks to launch our 2026 campaign?
I'm going to 100% lay out and say you've actually done that, and I never have. So
you got to do it, A.
Yes.
And B, I think he brings up a good point here about how the kayaks in the Cove are like a massive part of the ballpark vibe. When I bring people from out of town to Oracle Park, they take a lap, they see the beautiful views, they see the Coke bottle, yada, yada, yada. But that is what they zone in on and take pictures of to send to their family back home. And they're like, wow, there's people out here in kayaks. I think it would be awesome to get these guys a better setup. That being said, I don't know what it would be. I mean, unless the park development over there, right across the Cove has it, and you can just park in the regular parking lot. It's not like they're going to develop the what is that called? Like the dock area or the boat parking area. There's a word for it that's just not in my brain right now.
When you did it last year, where did you come from?
I rented one. I didn't have to worry about parking and launching. The city kayak people had me fully set up. And I think that's an option, but it's expensive if you're going every day.
Yeah, this is something I've never thought about. So it feels like in theory you should be able to just like let it rip from Lot A, but I also feel like that could get.
I mean, when I was like in college, we would go out in the Cove on like pool noodles and inflatable tubes, and we just crawled down those rocks slicing your feet up before getting in the very clean bay water. Um,
This is
I don't think that's encouraged or maybe even allowed, but something near Lot A seems like it would be the answer.
I think you're making the argument for me to just hang in the press box.
We got a Cove this year. We got it. I know it probably would have to be like an off day for you or something, and I have to drag you to the ballpark, but we got a Cove.
It's exactly where I want to be on my off days. Local park. Go to work.
The other answer here that I kind of dealt with when I've done it is he mentions there's a 3-hour time limit, so it makes it hard. I just kind of accept when I get in the Cove, I'm not seeing 9 innings. You know, I'm maybe going like 2nd to 7th.
I don't know that I'd want to sit in a kayak for 3 hours anyway. So
yeah, well, that's the other thing too. You are just sitting there.
Yeah.
You know, I could kayak for 3 hours, but I don't know that I want to just sit in a kayak for 3 hours.
Maybe we'll set like the episode 1000 of Giants Talk we'll do from the Cove.
I love it.
Just sit on our phones.
Do you know what episode we're on? Is that a running stat?
I think like 500-600 or something.
Okay, so we've got a ways to go.
We got a ways to go.
Unless there's a couple playoff runs that really start cranking up the episode count, we've got a ways to go.
Some more emergency pods.
Yeah. All right, one more question. This one's from Eric, and then we'll get to Alex's interview with Joe Salermo. Eric says, I haven't heard the Dodgers make any big splashy moves this offseason. Do you think they've reached their payroll breaking point with Ohtani, Yamamoto, etc., even with the money they're making from World Series and marketing? Or do you think they're equally as unimpressed with this year's free agent class? Or do they just think they're going to walk their way to another win in 2026? Say right off the cuff, they did make a fairly big signing, right? Didn't they get the top closer available in this free agent class?
They're on Tucker, who might happen before this gets posted or before people listen somewhere, but there's not really any holes there. So
that's what I was going to say. Like, just feel like they're going to walk their way to another World Series. I mean, that puts it really casually, but yeah, it's not like there's much places to improve unless you're like signing dudes on massive deals to be your backups.
The guy we were talking about last offseason at this time, Roki Sasaki, was their closer because they didn't have a rotation spot for him. He wasn't very good during the year, but like in theory, he should be a really good starter next year. Yeah. So must be nice over there.
Yeah,
they can kind of lay back.
Must be nice.
Maybe they'll bring Conforto back just to face the Giants 10 times.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? But yeah, good question, Eric. With that, let's get to Joe Salermo. Alex, anything we need to know going into this interview? Obviously, we already talked about Luis Hernandez a little bit.
No, just, I know a lot of people are starting to get deeper into this stuff a little bit and the international stuff. And, you hope this is a little bit of a time capsule that in 4 or 5 years is in the big leagues, and we can look back at the way that they thought of him from the start. But they're very, very high on him. I know they also love the makeup, and there were just no concerns over the last few months. Like, he was someone that they were locked in on, and he was locked in on the Giants and eager to be a Giant. So just had to wait until January 15th.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to hear from this. I'm also excited. We got to have Dwayne on sometime soon because he played in the Venezuelan Pro League for a while. He had some records down there. I think they've been broken now. But yeah, let's get that on the schedule soon. But until then, here's Alex with Joe Salermo.
All right, Joe, thanks for joining us on a huge day for you. These things are years in the process. You see these guys when they're really young, and you spend a lot of time, working on deals and all that. When you get to a day like today, what is it actually like in that room?
Well, I mean, in that room, there is a lot of excitement that all the 3-4 years of work that we put into Luis Hernandez is finally coming to fruition for his signing of his first professional contract. And like I said today, this is not the last step. It's the first step of a journey that obviously it's going to have ups and downs, but with his character and his overall makeup, and with the help of the education that the Giants are going to give him as a baseball player in person, he's going to succeed and help us at the big league level.
A little bit different. Last year, I think you guys had 15 guys led by Joshua. This year, 3. Obviously, Luis takes up most of the bonus pool. How challenging was it, I guess, a different challenge to have one guy kind of take up everything.
Yeah, the challenge is that when you get the one guy, you better be 99% right on that guy, right? But I think it's a really good challenge because it makes us really focus on the things that we like and what we look for in players, and complete the entire picture of the player. So it was a little hectic, but it was good. It was we actually enjoyed the challenge. The staff enjoyed the challenge. I think the San Francisco Giants enjoyed the challenge, and even though we only got one big time players, I think the other two players, Alexi Gallego out of Mexico, right hand pitcher that we signed, has a profile to be a starter in the future, and the kid Hugueto that we signed out of Venezuela for less money, also has some interesting tools and skills that he brings to the game.
I think everyone probably who's into this stuff reads the scouting reports and knows a little bit about Luis. But for you, I mean, what, like you mentioned, you better be sure about this guy. And I know you guys
Right.
have been for a long time. What really stands out that makes him such a special prospect?
Yeah, I think it's the ability to play the game at such a high, with such high skills for a 16, 17-year old. To rewind a little bit, our area scouts in Venezuela started following Luis in 2020, and he jumped over to Colombia for a tournament in the fall of 2020 when we could go out after COVID, go out and start scouting again. And we saw him in Colombia in a tournament, and we were like, "Wow, this guy really stood out." When he went back to Venezuela, our scouts continued to work over there. He went back out to Mexico for another tournament. We got in what it's called cross checkers, supervisors into Mexico to see him play, and we just continued the process into a certain point. We decided, hey, let's make a run at this guy, and before we decided to make a run at him, when we evaluate and sign a player, it's a team effort. It's a collaboration of all five departments: education, player development, medical, strength and conditioning. So it's just not international scouting. And I want to say it is, but there's a lot of input from other part of the organization, and when we came to a point that, hey, I think this is the guy, we just moved forward with the process.
He hit 346 in a Venezuelan pro league, and I think what stood out to me too was the strikeouts and walks were just about even. I assume that's extremely rare. What is just so different about his approach at the plate?
Yeah, I think it's a very control approach. It's a very sound approach for a 16, 17-year-old kid. He sees the ball very well. He sees the fastball very well. He recognizes the breaking ball, and his hands and stay inside the ball, and he uses the right center field part of the field very well, which you don't see younger kids do because they're so pool happy when they're young because they want to hit the ball over the fence. So when you see a younger kid use the right center field part of the field, you're like, wow, this guy's staying inside the ball. This guy's driving the ball the other way. The easiest thing to do is to learn to pull the ball. So the hardest thing to do is going the other way. So he's already doing one of the toughest thing to do as a hitter. So we were just like, wow, this is pretty good. And obviously he did it at the pro league level, which is composed of former minor leaguers, some big leaguers that are now, they got released and now they were playing over there. And the pitching is pretty good. I think the pitching is, you get some 90, 92, 93. So it's a pretty competitive league for a 16, 17-year-old kid.
And I know you guys view him as someone who can stay at short long term and
Yeah.
play a premium position.
Yeah, I think we view him as that. I think, if you want to compare him to a major leaguer, he's maybe Miguel Tejada, former big leaguer, kind of that 5'9", 5'10", stronger kid. You can also compare him to Tovar with the Rockies, with less strikeouts in Tovar, but kind of the same type potential power numbers. But like I said to certain people today, I said I think he's just going to be Luis Hernandez. He's going to he's going to create his own identity. So we're excited about that.
I was watching some of his Instagram videos, and had a lot of golf videos, and he has a tremendous golf swing. It almost looks like he could go pro in golf at some point. What kind of athlete is this guy that at that age he can do both?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he actually, and you know what? He picked up the game of golf pretty late. He picked it up like a year ago, basically. And his agent, Carlos Guillen, former major leaguer, who plays a lot of golf. And then he took him out on the course one day, and they started swinging. He was like, "Wow," he has a really easy swing with the golf stroke. I'm not a golfer, so I couldn't tell you is wow or not. But I hear people telling me that, hey, this guy's pretty good and has a really good long game, whatever that means.
One question I've been asked by some Giants fans recently is what's next for him, and him being so advanced. Does he need to do the traditional DSL ACL path, or could he accelerate a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, for me, hopefully he can accelerate, but that's not my call. Ultimately, it's up to Kyle and Randy that run our player development. I would love to see him go straight to US and create attention. Can you imagine having Joshua and him on the same field? It would be such an exciting time for Giants fans and the organization to see these two unique athletes that can play a premium position, and their type of game is totally opposite of each other. So it's would be very exciting.
I know this is a Randy and Kyle and Buster and Zach question mostly, but how do you see those two fitting together? Both of them very young. I think Josh Ward just turned 18, so 18, 17-year-old shortstops. Do you think it's going to be a competition for a few years, see who ends up being that guy?
Yeah, you know what? I would love to be a competition because I think competition brings out the best of athletes. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is that because we brought these players together before they signed for workouts, they know each other. They've been around each other, so they know. And with social media now, they know the bonus, they know the hype. So it's like I think they're both competitive kids. I think they're both great kids, and I think the future is very bright for the San Francisco Giants.
Tell Giants fans who are listening to this a little bit. I think this is going to be a year where Joshua starts to get a lot of attention. And, so, you already kind of see it the last few days as Baseball America puts their lists out. What makes him such a special prospect?
Joshua, because his athleticism is off the chart. And because he's so energetic, he's so quick. He could beat you on both sides of the ball. He could beat you with a long ball. He could beat you with stealing a base. He could beat you defensively. And obviously, there's a little crudeness to his approach at times because he swings out his shoes sometimes, the whole saying, But when he's controlled, it doesn't get any better. And then you take Hernandez, where he's going to drive the ball the other way. He's going to control the strike zone. When he gets his pitch, he's going to hit it over the fence. Defensively, he's going to make the everyday play. It's almost like Brandon Crawford, right? Brandon Crawford wasn't flashy, but man, he was a Gold Glover.
Yeah.
He would make every play to the left, every play to the right, right to him. So two different type of players. Josh is an exciting player, energetic. Hernandez is more controlled, kind of a professional approach. But we're glad they're on the same field.
I know this is a different signing class, but since I have you, Kayama and Martinez are starting to really accelerate as well. What did you like about those guys when you brought them in?
Yeah, I mean, Kayama was a converted guy. He wasn't pitching long. He was only pitching for 3 months. We had a lot of history with him from our scouts in Venezuela. Then he jumped over to a tournament in Colombia, two tournaments actually, and his arm worked very well. He was a good mover. He was a plus, which makes him a plus athlete. The fastball, he threw strikes to the fastball. For a kid that was pitching for 3 months, he showed a breaking ball that had some a bite to it, and and the body was a projectable body, and he had arm speed. So we were excited about that. Now Martinez, he was an older sign. I saw him with our staff in Maracay, Venezuela, and in a pro stadium, and he came for a workout, and he was just lights out with the arm speed. He threw strikes, strong kid. We met with him, good character, and we gave him a chance. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, we knew Martinez was going to be that. We liked some of the package he brought to the table, and we said, hey, we have this type of money only. Do you want to sign with the Giants? And he signed, and he's doing great. He's a great kid.
I'll finish with this. Everything these days is around Buster Posey. He takes over at a time where you're finalizing Joshua, but he's had a full year now, and I know you mentioned you've been on Luis for years. What has that experience been like with Buster? Maybe I know talking to him, he went to the Felipe Alou Academy and was impressed with everything there. Just what's that experience been like, and did you have to maybe talk him into this at all, or did he have a real understanding of what type of hitter he was looking at?
No, he came, and I give a lot of credit to Buster Posey because he's a future Hall of Famer. And he came into this organization, and he made an impact statement by going down to the Dominican Republic and visiting our academy and being around the kids and seeing the players that we were going to sign. And our staff was thrilled by those actions, and it meant a lot to our staff and to the players that were there. And when he went down there, we had Joshua there, we had Luis Hernandez there, and he was very impressed by their actions and their hitting skills and their hitting tools. So it was a very gracious thing to do for him to come into the DR and see our complex and our players. Incredible power statement by him. And then the other thing he did do is when you come into your organization, you're always going to have positives and negatives, right? So when he came in, I think he looked at the positives and is working on fixing the negatives. So I think that's a credit to his intelligence, to being around the game for so long, and it's great that he's had patience with us, and he has seen that our international staff is doing a good job.
Well, back to back, very, very strong January 15th for you. So I thank you for taking some time. I know this is a day to celebrate a little bit, but I appreciate it, and I'm sure it gets back to work on 2027, right? So
yeah, I mean, there's no, we're having meetings right now for 27, so there's no downtime in international baseball. Just to let you know, we don't have the October 15th to January 15th that period. So it's just getting back to work. We start grinding again and start putting kind of our board together for next year's class.